people, it's your voice man back again with the show of the topic on All For United YouTube channel. As always, make sure you drop a like, subscribe to the channel. If you're joining us on Twitter, make your way over to YouTube, get your comments into the comment section, and I will get them on screen. As always, the A team is back in the building. I'm joined by Neil, Barry, and Joe. How we doing, boys?
Excellent.
Ready to win. Ready to win.
Oh my
Better
God.
than these two.
Listen, as always, make sure you check it out on Twitter as well, because the poll after the video will be on Twitter, so you lot can vote for who you think deserves to be the winner. Listen, if anyone's trying to bribe you, ignore all those bribes, because we don't do that here. The topic,
Yes, we do. I'll take a bribe.
The topic today is Manchester United's greatest ever captain. I'm sure a lot of you will be saying Harry Maguire, but obviously we'll leave that to a bit later on in the show.
Sean Maguire off EastEnders.
I've just seen it. Listen, we're going to get straight into it as always, but for the first time, I'm not even selected who's going in what order. I'm going to do it live on air, so no one can blame me and say I'm trying to fix it to help Joe, because everyone keeps thinking I'm in Joe's corner.
What?
So, very straightforward. Very straightforward.
I'm always last. Always last.
All right, okay, very straightforward. I've got a number between 1 and 20. The people that are closest is going to be in that order. Yes, Neil, have you got questions, sir?
Yeah, I like the way Joe's red top pings off the Manchester City background he's got in that room he's in. Anyway, carry on.
Oh, God. Right.
Okay. Before you say anything about my blue top,
it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I like the blue kit, to be fair, actually.
Barry.
So I'm a fan. I want him to bring it back. I want him to bring it back. But listen, let's get started. So basically, very straightforward. I've got a number in my head between 1 and 20. Obviously, whoever's closest first, and whoever's furthest away is last. Right, okay, so the number is in my head. We will start with Barry first. They can't shout at me. Barry, what number are you going for?
11.
Okay, fair enough. Neil, what number are you going for?
Harry Maguire's number 5.
Okay. Joe, what are you going for?
As a little clue, 16.
We've got 11. We've got 11, 5, and 16, okay? So, obviously, I know what that's referring to. Being Irish as well, it's not going to be difficult to guess who your captain's going to be. But, sadly for you, you're in 3rd place.
Oh no!
Because the number was, of course, number 3.
Hey!
And Barry got second. That's the fairest way to do it. It's as simple as that. And it is what it is. Maguire, the worst of players. Trust me, there's probably been worse than Maguire. Don't worry about it. Anyways, very straightforward. Let us know who you think your best captain is of all time. Neil is going to start us off. As always, they have to explain why they chose this human.
Fucking hell. Listen, see, out to get me, okay?
That was fair. As always, they have to explain why they feel theirs is better than the others. Anyways, Neil, we'll start with you, mate. What your thoughts?
Right, so do I go with both? Am I going with both of mine now, or just my first one?
No, just whoever you think the greatest captain is. One person, that's it.
Right, the greatest captain of all time at Manchester United, and these two can sit down a minute and rest easy in their chairs, because there's no way they've picked this bloke. And Joe's actually just sat back.
Go on, one second. I don't think you don't know your pay. Go on, Barry. Go on, let's see. I don't think you know.
So my greatest captain of all time.
I think he's picked Roger Byrne.
No, that was close. I nearly went with Roger. Roger Byrne would make my all-time greatest 11, because he'd be the best left back we've ever had. Anyway, controversial, but best captain we've had of all time. The only captain we've ever had with the word "Sir" in front of his name, Sir Bobby Charlton. The only captain we've ever had who's got a stand named after him, Sir Bobby Charlton. Won the Ballon d'Or. The only captain we've had who's 2-footed. See, I'm doing a Barry here because this.
I know, this is fully.
Barry does all this. It's all right. Even the dog wants to leave the room when I mention Barry's name. He was the fulcrum of the United side out of the ashes of 1958. No one, not even the fans under the age of 35, 40 can dispute that. Because if they dispute that, they should go and speak to their fathers or their mothers and say, tell me about Sir Bobby Charlton. And always say, Sir Bobby Charlton. You got to remember that. This man got booked once playing for Manchester United. Never, ever, Joe, disgraced the shirt. Never disgraced the shirt. Played every single game as though it was his last game. Scored the greatest goal in the history of Manchester United. Not the most famous goal, but one of the greatest goals in the Charity Shield of 67 against Spurs with a left foot drive from the edge of the box when it was proper football. And Barry remembers this goal because it was an absolute screamer. And the commentator, Kenneth Wolstenholme, said that goal was good enough to win the Grand National. Not just a football match, good enough to win the Grand National. This is the guy we're talking about, Sir Bobby Charlton. Neither of the other two have picked Sir Bobby Charlton. And you've got to get his name right, Sir Bobby Charlton. I know the other two have picked. And I sent Usman a text earlier telling me who they picked. He represented his country in 4 World Cups. 4 World Cups. He was the all-time appearance and goal scorer for Manchester United until Rooney overtook him. So that was for a long, long time. Yeah. Where the players played more games now, they were fitter, and the pitches were completely different. And yet he was head and shoulders above any other player. And he's resurrected that club. Up there with Matt Busby and Sir Alex Ferguson as the people. Well, the people who resurrected the club were Sir Matt Busby and Sir Bobby Charlton. Because he got off his deathbed along with Matt Busby. And the reason United are the greatest club and the most famous club in world football is because of Munich. Nothing, that cannot be disputed. Liverpool fans can't dispute that. Man City fans can't dispute that. That's why we're the greatest club in the world. And that's why there was a massive outpouring. Yeah, Keane would be second for me, Darren, if he was not third. But he's got a fair point. He's one of the greatest players in English football history. And let's not forget it. How many 2-footed players have you ever seen in the Premiership? He could do it with both feet. Both feet. And on any pitch, any conditions, the man was an absolute god and still is. And when he passes away, I'm going to his funeral. I rest my case.
Wow, to be honest, that's good luck to the other two lads. How can you debate against literally Sir Bobby Charlton himself, literally legend of the club? As you said, he resurrected the club alongside obviously Sir Matt Busby as well. You know, everything I know as a Manchester United fan, the first thing I knew was Sir Bobby Charlton. Even though, you know, as a fan personally, I never got to see him play. You know, we see clips, but if you ask a United fan of any age in my era, anyways, they would say Sir Bobby Charlton first and foremost, really.
Google that goal against Spurs in 67, Charity Shield, which was held at Old Trafford. Google the goal and wait to see the body swerve that Dennis Law does on Alan Mullery. And then when the ball's rolled across to Bobby Charlton, that goal is good enough to win the league, the FA Cup and the Grand National. Beat that. Well,
we could have done with flipping him scoring against Spurs on the weekend, but it is what it is. I'm just saying.
Yeah, but they scored 5 more than us. He only scored 2 in that game.
Yeah, exactly. But it is what it is. We've got a few comments here, obviously, before we pass it to the other lads. Gainer saying, you probably can guess what Gainer's saying. Brian Robson.
That's all right.
Obviously, Gainer's profile picture on Twitter, so I'm not surprised at all. Got one for Cantona, quite a lot for Roy Keane. I wonder who's going to say Roy Keane. Yeah. So it's between the 3 names really. I've only seen Roy Keane, Robson, and obviously Sir Bobby Charlton, of course. Right, I feel I can guess everybody else's. I'm not going to lie, but Barry, you are in second place. What are your thoughts and who are you going for, mate?
All right. Well, firstly, I think Neil has put a very good case across for what a great player Sir Bobby was. And I have no doubt the check from Sir Bobby is already in the mail to Neil.
I'd send it back.
But, for me, captains are in the spotlight at the moment because Man United, in my opinion, have not had a decent captain for a long time. And when we look at when I look at who I'm going to choose, I'm not necessarily looking at the best player. I'm not necessarily looking at a guy who's two-footed, who's scored the best goal. So you might think that I'm angling towards Jesse Lingard because he's captain on one occasion.
Jack Grealish.
And it was a tough one. But Neil knows who I'm going to opt for. And of course, they don't call him Captain Marvel for nothing. And for me, Brian Robson is head and shoulders the best captain that United have had. I could have been nasty to Joe and I could have chosen Roy Keane. I think that Joe has prepared a speech. Unlike my colleagues.
He's got his Irish flag behind him, man.
He's got the shirt behind him.
I've not prepared anything because I wasn't sure where I'd go in the order, you see. But for me, a captain has to set an example and he has to be a leader of men. And none better than Brian Robson for me. When Robbo appeared at United were pretty much in the doldrums. He was, of course, a record signing, and he lifted the entire club. And he lifted it in many ways, because I think that in many respects, possibly like Keane, and I don't want to steal Joe's thunder, but he led by example. And he expected those around him to deliver what he delivered. And I would highly recommend, if you want to know exactly the effect that Robson had, go and listen to Lee Sharp's podcast. In fact, when you listen to any players that played with Robson, they all highlight him as the greatest leader that they've had and one of the greatest players that we've ever had because he led by example. And Lee Sharp talks about not only did Robson run the tempo of the game, but he ran the game, he ran the referee, he ran the opposition. And he tells a beautiful story of when he was new in the team. United were playing Spurs and he got kind of bullied by Paul Stewart of Spurs. So Robbo came up to Sharpie and kind of gave him a bit of a nudge and a wink and said, don't worry, I'll sort him out. And not long afterwards, Paul Stewart had to leave the field due to injury after crunching tackle by Robson. Now, if you talk about two-footed players, Robson was a two-footed player. If you talk about stunning goals that could win the Grand National, his goal against Liverpool in the FA Cup semi-final, absolutely sublime. And if you watch the way Robson played, certainly in his earlier years at United, he would be seen getting the ball in his own penalty box, starting a move, charging upfield and ending it by scoring a goal. And for a midfielder, he was prolific. He scored 99 goals for United. And heaven alone knows how many more goals he would have scored and how many more appearances he would have had he not had a career blighted by injuries. That was his biggest downfall, because for Robson, never mind going for the 50-50 ball, which invariably he'd win, but if there was a 5% chance of winning it, he'd go for it. And as a result, he sustained an unbelievable amount of injuries. He played 90 times for England. He missed 35 England games due to injury. So he would have been England's most kept outfield player. He was a fabulous captain for England. And of course, if you want to highlight a particular game of Robson's, it always falls into the spotlight. It's a game against Barcelona when we came from 2 goals down to 2. And that was just a phenomenal game. And, you know, the measure of the man is how he's still heralded. Wherever he goes, you know, he's well known. He's a wonderful fellow. He's a great ambassador for the club. But coming back to the subject at hand, we're talking about captains. And he inspired all around him. And I think we have to remember that some of the time that Robson played, United were not at their best. They were mediocre at best some of the time. He captained them to 3 FA Cup victories, to a European Cup Winners' Cup win. So we got back into Europe when English teams were allowed back after that Heysel disaster. And he was fantastic. So wonderful to see him lift that. And I'm really pleased that he won 2 Premiership trophies his last 2 seasons at the club. And of course, we won the Premier League 26 years after last winning the first division, and delighted to see him lifting the trophy, and just all-round wonderful man. So for me, Robson, all these other captains who will get mentioned are fantastic, but how we could do with a Brian Robson in the dressing room at the moment, that's for sure.
Yeah, Barry, you're getting a lot of love you from Gain. Obviously, as I've already mentioned, Gain is a huge Brian Robson fan. So
good taste, Gaynor. Well done.
a lot of people are agreeing with you, saying, you know, fantastic manner in which you've spoken about him. Obviously, some people still, you know, and ahhing, because it's difficult, to be honest, because of course they're all from all different eras, but the two people that you have mentioned are literally legends, aren't they? So it's difficult for you to say anything about Sir Bobby Charlton. Obviously, you know what Joe's going to say. Neil, Neil, what's the point?
They're not literally legends.
Well,
they
yes,
are
they
legends.
Yeah,
they're not literally legends.
That's just my terminology.
Let's not do what the kids do and put literally in front of everything, which proper winds me off.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm getting torn off on that live.
Right, go on, Joe.
Okay.
Right, Joe, just in time, Therese has bought Keen for me, so I don't think anyone's going to be surprised about this, Joe. But listen, you kind of only got one option anyways, to be fair. So
I literally only have one option. And thankfully, it's fallen to me this way. The person I've chosen, which is not surprised to me, just because I am Irish, which I'm sporting here. Yeah, in case it wasn't obvious enough. But growing up in Ireland, obviously, my hero beyond anyone else was Roy Keane. Even though John O'Shea was a very, 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 very far away second. But with Keano, because I was supporting Man United for my entire life, but I only really got into them when you have
when they start winning, of course. Yeah.
Okay, guys, I'm trying to be sentimental and
sorry.
You didn't interrupt Mr. on top here and to the side, okay? Right. When they were being all lovely, okay? But when I'm trying to have it,
apologies.
You can't take penalties.
I'll stop.
Okay. But having Keano at the centre of midfield, literally controlling everything, it really inspired me and everyone around me. In school, everyone wanted to be Roy Keane. He was 5'8", with no muscle on him, no fat on him or anything. He looked like you could push him over in a light breeze. But through his whole life, he grew up in an absolute shithole in Cork and had to fight for everything. And that showed in every single second that he played on a pitch because he fought for it. He was underrated with how he actually was as a footballer as well. But as a captain, as a leader, there is no one. I was researching it all day today, even though I didn't really have to. But he made everyone better around him. He led by example by being the best player on the pitch, but made everyone better, whether they're afraid of him or whether they just wanted it as much as him. He made them better. Whenever it called for a big goal or for a big game, he was always there. When he compare two people, okay, we'll say similar situations. Semi-final Champions League against Juventus, okay. Roy Keane gets yellow carded, all right. Roy Keane, our talisman, our most important player. We just go back to England, 1990. I know it's a different player, but same situation. Paul Gascoigne gets a yellow card against Italy, or was it against Germany, and he is just gone. That yellow card spurred Roy Keane on to have the greatest single game of football that Alex Ferguson said he's ever seen someone play. It didn't slow him down. And every player around him is better for having him on the pitch. And for that and that alone, I think there's similarities between him and Robbo. Absolutely. I think they're both, without them being in the teams would not be who they were. I think Keano came at a time when there was players that were able to play more than what they were themselves and who had the same tenacity and the same skill set as Keane. And Keane was able to make them better, while Robbo, unfortunately, was born at the wrong time. Bobby Charlton is probably the greatest player we ever had at our club. That's a different argument. But as a captain, I would say I wouldn't agree with as much because he wasn't known for shouting or for yelling. He was more quiet. So I think he didn't make anyone better by telling them to get better. He just was the best player there. So I think as a captain, I think not a chance, but as a player, definitely. But Keano, underrated as a player, and as a captain is probably the most respected in the Premier League era.
Wow. Okay, Neil, before I pass it to you, and obviously the second segment of the show, which is, of course, you guys explaining why your pick is the best for those that are voting at home. Just regarding Roy Keane, he epitomized everything good about Manchester United in terms of, you know, the hunger, the fight, the desire to, you know, for the badge. Obviously, you still see him in Sky Sports Studios and the manner in which he is. He's not changed whatsoever. It means so much to him to just win the game. And I think that definitely, you know, it definitely rubbed off on the players around him. Every single player that he's played with, you know, similar to every captain you guys have chosen so far, they've all spoken glowing of him, and they've said, if it wasn't for Keane, we wouldn't have been the players that we are. So for me personally, from all the interviews that I've ever seen from Roy Keane, everything that everyone else says, they always say it's Sir Alex Ferguson on the pitch, who is, for me personally, the greatest manager that we've ever had. So if he was to embody Sir Alex Ferguson, he's definitely done something right. If Sir Alex Ferguson said that himself. But I'm going to pass it to you guys. As always, to say your bit, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to explain why your captain is more influential than the other two picks. Of course, Neil, we will come back to you. So over to yourself, mate.
Me first.
Yeah, we'll let you go first. Yeah.
I can't disagree with what Barry said about Robbo. And the reason Keane is such a great player is probably because of Brian Robson, because Robson took him under his wing. Keane, at the end, it was a bit of a car crash. My argument with Bobby Charlton, he took the club out of a plane crash, a genuine plane crash. That club was ruined. Him and Matt Busby got together. I'm not disputing what the other two have said. Keane was a fantastic player, but he was never the best player on the pitch. Paul Scholes was always the best player on the pitch. And Keane made a lot of players around him look great. Keane was good at playing the short balls, and he kept the game playing. Robson was a genius. That goal against Liverpool at Main Road, I was there. That was amazing. That was unbelievable. Me and my dad were there. It was brilliant. But Bobby Charlton was the fulcrum of the rebuild of the club and the history of Manchester United. The fulcrum of the club. Out of the ashes, no one thought we would come back after Munich. And that's the point with Sir Bobby Charlton. He's the only player with surname in front of his name, and he's the only player with a stand named after him. Just go back to what I previously said. They can have my time.
Right, okay. Barry, strong words there by Neil. Well, glowing words for your selection, not so much for Joe's. Barry, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so look, Bobby Charlton, God's gentleman, brilliant player. I don't think an inspirational captain on the field necessarily, because he was quiet. He was quiet. The other thing is, Bobby Charlton did not become the captain after the Munich air crash. He only became captain a number of years after that. So, you know, to say that my chance, Neil, but no question about it, in the eyes of many, the greatest player that's ever played for United, although for me, George Best is the greatest player that's ever played for United. But be that as it may, Brian Robson never blotted his copybook with respect to problems at the club, etc., etc. You know, there was the talk about the drinking culture that he was part of. I think that was part of football generally in that era, and it never, ever affected his game. He had the opportunity to earn a much bigger salary by going to play in Italy. He never moved on. He remained true to the club, even when the club weren't doing well. And in fact, I think Robson and Keane are cut from the same cloth in some ways with respect to being inspirational to those around them. And I love what Joe said in terms of making those around them better players, because there was the fear factor. The United players, when you listen to what they said, training was more intense than the game. And why was it more intense? Because they didn't want to fail, because they'd get an absolute rollicking from their captains. And I have to say, I was very privileged to watch United training at Carrington many times when Roy Keane was there. And it was the loudest voice. In fact, often it was the only voice on the training ground. So no question about that. But such a pity the way things ended for Roy Keane at the club. Great pity, because, you know, human nature is we tend to concentrate on the bad rather than the good. But of course, we'll remember him as being a magnificent leader and player. But that's why, for me, Robson shades it. Bear in mind also that Robson grabbed his chance to become the captain because Ray Wilkins was the captain when Robson arrived. And Wilkins sustained a fractured cheekbone in a game against Bournemouth. And Robson took over both the United and England captaincy, and Wilkins never got them back because he was so good. So I would appeal to those voters out there to let sanity rule and note when it's done. Robson, I know you feel sorry for Joe, you feel sorry for Neil, but come on, go with the South African lad for a change.
Wow, strong words there at the end. No, I think,
I'm well enough.
to be honest, I need to get the tissues out. But listen, I'm going to pass
Can
it
I just...
to you. Yeah, go on. No, I can't pass it you back.
No, he went over 60 seconds.
Yeah, he did.
That was timing him.
Okay, fair enough. But you said you gave your time to him, so it's fine.
No, I said I'd give it to Joe because Joe was losing.
I am not losing.
Joe, he took a dig about the manner in which Roy Keane left the club. Obviously, we know what happened. You know, half the players. Obviously, Ferguson had that spat with him, etc. Listen, it's up to you,
I think to be honest, that was a political move because as Keano said himself about that tape, it said if it's so bad, release it now. It's been 15 years or so. Everything can get released. Release it. And he said that everyone in the club, all the players, agreed with everything he said. It was a case of that Keane was getting. He was past his best, and they just wanted to try find a way to get him out of the club because he wasn't as useful as he wanted to be, and he wanted to play week in, week out. But that's what I mean. I think this debate is really, sorry, Neil, is really between Robbo and Keano because Bobby Charlton is up there with the greatest players that has ever played in football. But I can't put him as one of the greatest ever captains at our club because Keane is definitely the great for me anyway. Whether it came first or second, it was always in the history of our club. It's always going to be between Robbo and Keano for the greatest captains of all time. Right. And that's just how I feel, and how the poll is showing that as well. And
have you got the polls? I haven't got the polls up.
But if you look like we play during the 90s when Keane was at the height of his powers, we won everything. We won absolutely everything with him at the heart of the midfield, driving everything. And the thing is, the players both feared and loved him and respected him. Like they all said, we have this persona of him screaming and shouting. I know Darren Fletcher and all came out and said, because it was about the video coming out, and he was like, people think that I'm afraid of Keano. It's like Keano would scream at you, but then talk to you afterwards and say, this is what you need to do, and this is what you need to do to get better. And they'd listen to him. It was respect across the board, as well as fear, as well as everything. He was the personification of Alex Ferguson on the pitch. Yeah. Like there has never been a better captain to player role, teammate, whatever way you want to call it. And look, the brightest candles, I hate doing metaphors, sorry. The brightest candles last the shortest time, whatever it is. Like it was never going to be easier to get him out the fiery character he is and was and still is. But that drove him to be what he is, because from where he came from to where he is now is all through his tenacity and him wanting to be better than he is and wanting the same from everyone else. And that's why he didn't work in management, because he has high expectations for everyone. And he was the perfect time for him to be alive, was at that time in the 90s, because he was surrounded by players with the same mentality, but just always needed to be pushed. And he was the perfect man for it. And I have no doubt in my mind that Robbo would be doing the same thing if he was in the 90s. He would be leading, not by example, but being the best player on the pitch, the same as Keano, but also by getting in the faces and making them play better. I think it's so tight between the two of them. But while with Bobby Charlton, I think he would lead by just being the best player. But I don't know if he could drag it out of other people. Right, Neil, go on. What have you got to say?
Right. Can we just get this right? His name's not Bobby Charlton. It's Sir Robert Charlton. Let's not piss about here.
Well, I prefer Jack Charlton.
Joe, wind your neck in. You know when Keane walked out in Tokyo?
I know when he walked out in Saipan,
Yeah, whatever. I've been there. But how did you feel about him then?
I was 12, and at that time...
No, but that's not the answer.
No, my answer was he could have shot my parents and I would have loved him when I was 12.
Right. Who did Keane support as a child?
What's that? Who did Keano support? As far as I know,
I don't think that's relevant to him being the best
I
captain
did.
or not. It doesn't matter, does it? Who he
I think he did.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But anyway, but my point is, his name starts with Sir.
Okay.
I agree. If it's not Bobby, it's Brian Robson. Captain Marvel.
Okay, so you're Team Barry then, aren't you?
I don't care if I don't win, but I'd still put the marker down for Sir Bobby Charlton. But
you, the fans who are watching, get to decide. Check us out on All for United.
I'll vote for Barry.
Before we wrap it up, I'm just going to ask the question. Of course, the topic was kind of related to the current situation with the current captain. Just to finish off, I just want to have you guys' thoughts on what you feel we are missing currently in terms of leadership. Obviously, you guys have all stated incredible players, but incredible leaders most importantly, hence why they're in the conversation. Barry, we'll start with you. What do you think is missing the most in terms of leadership at the club currently? On the pitch, sorry, not in terms of backroom and all the rest of the nonsense.
On the pitch?
Yeah, of course, yeah. The players.
Yeah, we don't have leaders on the pitch. That's the problem. I mean, you know, I can't answer this in a short answer, but we don't have leaders on the pitch. If you look at United captains over the years, some of them have been non-vocal. You know, you look at guys like Cantona. They were not particularly vocal on the pitch, yet they were good leaders. I think when I look at the current team, for me, leadership quality, probably Bruno at the moment, because he's got a voice. But I don't see leadership on the field. And you've asked me not to comment on leadership off the field, so I won't. But you know, the leadership on the field is lacking. And if we're talking about on the field, remember that the manager and the coaching staff are also on the field, and I think there's some leadership sadly lacking over there as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't disagree with anything you've just said. In terms of Bruno Fernandes, he is one of the players that is definitely showing some form of fight. You can tell it means a lot to him in terms of passion. He gives everything for the game. Sadly, some of the others don't, by the looks of it. And for me personally, what makes a leader is, and I tweeted this out because I saw someone tweet something about Maguire, of course, who is our current captain. They said something about they had an image of Maguire shouting, etc., for the penalty against Brighton. And of course, he won the penalty. But for me personally, what makes a good leader isn't when you're winning. It's when you're losing. It's when things are going badly, the chips are down, your back's against the wall. That's what I look for in a leader, the person, when everything is going wrong, will drag you out of it. And that's, for us, we have leaders when things are going great. We're winning 4-0, we're winning whatever the scoreline may be. We have leaders then. But when we're losing against, like we did against Spurs, the reason we lost that game, was because of the mentality. The players' heads dropped after 2-3-1. And at 3-1, for me personally, as a Manchester United fan, I was sat there thinking we still might be able to pull this back, even with 10 men, if we don't lose our heads here. And then they completely lost their heads, which of course is down to the lack of leadership. You know, as you guys have mentioned, obviously the three people that you mentioned, I can assure you if any of them were on the pitch, they probably would not even conceded the third goal, because after the second goal, they probably would have shored it up and said, look, listen, let's relax for 10 minutes and let's just see what happens. And let's not obviously lose our heads. As soon as Martial got sent off, the game was done for me in terms of mentally. I'll pass it to you, Neil. What are your thoughts, obviously, on what myself and Barry have said? And in terms of the current crop of players, you know, is there anyone in there you can see as a leader? Or do you think, as Barry's quite bluntly said, there isn't anyone there?
The player, if I could pick a player from our past to put into this current team, Barry, lean back, but it would be Captain Marvel. Because he wouldn't stand for any of that crap that we put up with.
Absolutely. But you've got to pick a current player.
Pardon?
You've got to pick a current
player. Which current player do you think in this crop of players do you think might potentially become our next leader, our next captain?
I've got to be honest. I don't see any of them at the moment. I don't think any of them have been long enough to be embedded in the club. They've got to understand the heritage of this club. This club's got a history. It's got a heritage. Yeah. It means something to these fans. Bruno has got the best chance. But at the moment, it needs to be captained by committee because we're in real trouble at the moment.
Yeah.
So captain by committee might be the best way to drive us forward. Bruno's been there 5 minutes.
Yeah.
5 minutes. I'm talking the history of this club and the heritage, and that means something in here to me. That's what keeps me awake at night. Not the shit that they delivered last Sunday for us. Because they all woke up on Monday morning and looked at their bank accounts, and they've got shitloads in there. But the fans, we hadn't got anything close to them.
Here. Well said, Neil. Well said.
No, I completely agree with what you've just said there. For me, a lot of people said McTominay, by the way. I've had a couple other people, on my podcast as well said, but for me personally, he's not going to get on the pitch, so I don't see how you can give him captaincy.
Not good enough yet.
But I do see what people would say about McTominay because he does seem to genuinely care about the club. Of course, he understands the club heritage. He's one of our own, so to speak. Neil, sorry.
Why can't I see that people are praising me all night? Because I can't see it.
Oh, right.
I mean, come on.
Don't hold your breath. Joe, Joe, what do you reckon, mate? So, obviously, in terms of current crop of players, of course, like I already mentioned, you guys are named the fantastic leaders of the club. It's clearly something that we're lacking at the moment. Can you see anyone that will step up and eventually be that leader that we're crying out for? And what qualities do you think we're missing?
I think it's just balls across the board, and a bit of just common sense. Yeah. I think a future captain, I'm just going, it's hard to really know, do you want a captain that's screaming in people's faces? Because that doesn't seem to be the way it is anymore. I think the importance of the captaincy is dwindling. I think it's more about the manager across the board. They are all expressing the manager rather than one person making sure everyone doing what they're supposed to do. Yeah. I think eventually it'll come down to, it'll be Rashford. I think eventually, maybe 3 or 4 years' time. I think I'm not saying that that's what I want. I just think he's 22. He has a good social conscience. He seems to be a good person, and if hopefully he'll become the best player on the pitch, and hopefully he'll be able to grow a bit more. But lads, I agree with you shaking your head. I'm clutching at straws here, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? I'm picking someone who I think it will be, and who will hopefully grow. Oh, that'd be great. Dino, yeah.
I think that's a decent shout, to be fair.
Could be.
I think it's a decent shout, but you never know. He's quite arrogant. He seems to believe in himself quite. He seems to believe in himself a lot. And to be fair, every time he's played, I know he's not playing against anyone particularly, good, but you can see he's very vocal, which I'm a massive fan of. For me personally, I do agree with what you said, Joe, in terms of it's difficult to assess what does make a good leader in this generation, because as Jose Mourinho as a manager struggles so much. If you tell someone honestly, it's a lot of players these days are too muddy cuddles, so to speak. It's difficult to get through. Like Roy Keane, as you've already alluded to, struggles with his managerial in particular because he's too ruthless, and a lot of players have been brought up and they're cut from a different cloth now, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's not the same as when we were growing up, and obviously definitely not when obviously Neil and Barry were growing up.
We were growing up.
Yeah, but for me personally, I grew up on Roy Keane, so in that era, you can definitely get away with saying something to a player and they wouldn't take it personally. Now, if you say something to a player, it's
we need to scare the shit out of the players.
No, but now that's what I'm saying. Now the problem.
Oh, but that's what we need to do. We're Man United. We're not some Joe Schmo from down the road. We're Man United. Scare the shit out of the players.
Yeah, well, that's how it should be.
The fans. We're the biggest club in the world.
Well, that's how it should be, but obviously, sadly, we're living in a different time because the players start crying.
Off this channel.
It's not me. I'm on the page. I haven't got a page. Listen,
I love this club.
Listen, it is what it is, Neil. We can't control it, sadly, but what we can control is the poll. Check us out on All For United on Twitter. The poll is already up. Vote for your winner who deserves to win. So Bobby Charlton.
One
Ryan
comment,
Robson,
please.
Or Roy Keane. Just Barry, to finish off.
Yeah. Joe, you need to send me a letter of thanks, because had I given a soliloquy on Roy Keane, I would win the poll, because the voters are all from the modern era. The poll will have Roy Keane, but Neil and I have remained true to ourselves, as has Joe, by putting across the player that we feel should be the leader. But I have to say, what's amazing about Man United is that these three that we've spoken about are, as Neil said, they are absolute utter legends, 3 of the greatest footballers
Literally.
that have ever breathed. And as United fans, we're absolutely privileged to have had them wearing the red shirt of United. So we love all 3 of them, no question about it.
Or as Joe would say, the pale blue shirt.
Listen, and on that note, make sure you drop the like, subscribe to All For United, turn the notification bell on, and stay tuned for other content. Apart from that, it's been your host, Osman. Peace.